back. You're watching the ET Money Show with me, Kavita Thaplayal, and we are on the last leg of the show. And there are plethora of funds available in the market to invest your hard-earned money. But how do you assess which is the right fund for your portfolio? To help you navigate through this maze on the ET Money Show, we have on board Hemant, Wiseinvest Pvt.Ltd to answer all your queries. But then before we talk to our viewers, do not forget to send us your queries on our WhatsApp number, which is 865-797-4571. You can also email us your queries on the money show at etnow.tv. So Hemant, good evening and welcome to the show. We have all the queries ready for you, and the first one is coming up from Mr. Y.R. Reddy. Now he says that he wants to accumulate 10 crores for his retirement in 20 years, and right now he's investing in Quant Tax Saver ELSS 5,500 per month. He's also investing 1,000 a year in NPS, 1 lakh a year NPS and PPF, and he's also investing in mutual funds via SIP for other goals that he has lined up for himself. Now he wants to know that the retirement plan, is it on track, because he wants to accumulate 10 crores in 20 years.
Good evening, Kavita. I think if you look at basically the target amount is around 10 crore in 20 years. So just to understand, whether it will be the investment will be sufficient or not, let me assume that if the entire money is invested in equity for 20 years, he would actually need SIP of 1 lakh rupees per month to get there to the target of 10 crore. Now let's look at where the investments are being made by Mr. Reddy right now. He's investing 1 lakh rupees in PPF. Okay, we all know that PPF is a great option for someone who is looking at debt as an option. This gives you guaranteed return, the capital is safe. But when you're looking at 20-year time horizon, obviously it doesn't give you the kind of return the equity can give you, despite the fact that you have to pay 10% capital gain tax. So that's one. Second is he's investing 1 lakh rupees in NPS. A good option, but again, I think the kind of return he can earn from NPS will depend upon the asset class, asset allocation chosen by him. So clearly another issue that he also needs to consider that whatever corpus he is going to build, 40% of that compulsorily will have to be invested in an annuity. So that means that 40% will not be accessible to him. And the annuity that you get, the interest that you get is low and also taxable. So these are two things that he needs to remember. As I mentioned earlier, he needs to invest 1 lakh rupees per month, so there is a huge gap, although he is investing 10,000 rupees in 4 funds and then 5,000 in contacts. So obviously that will kind of bridge the gap to an extent. He needs to really relook at the kind of investment that he would like to make. As far as the portfolio is concerned, broadly I would say the funds are good. Maybe in terms of allocation to different market segments, my recommendation would be that if you can look at, let's say large and mid-cap fund instead of frankly India blue chip fund. So that's one change I would say, but like I said, he has to increase in investment amount and also realign the portfolio by ensuring that the larger allocation goes to equity.
Also one thing, now he's investing 1 lakh in PPF and NPS. Any change over there, would you recommend him?
Yeah, surely, like I said, his investment amount has to be 12 lakh rupees per year. Yeah. He's investing 2 lakh rupees here. Like I said, there's a gap in what he needs to invest. And also his allocation to equity, because we don't know how much he's investing in equity through NPS. But as we know that PPF is 100% kind of debt kind of instrument. So that's where I would say that maybe he can reallocate some part of it to equity mutual funds.
Right. Hemant, we move on to our next viewer, who is Mr. L.K. Anand, and he is asking you that is the balance advantage fund better than large cap or a flexi cap fund? Right now he's holding ICICI Pru Balance Advantage Fund, and he wants to understand if for a longer term this fund is enough for all his goals or not.
Well, I think if you look at in terms of risk profile and the way these funds are investing, these are completely different categories. ICICI Pru Balance Advantage Fund that is mentioned is obviously it belongs to the balance advantage category. This is also called where the asset allocation is managed dynamically. So what happens is there is a combination of equity, arbitrage and debt, and the manner that money is invested in equity depends upon what is the valuation of market, what is the PE. So whenever the PE goes up, the allocation to equity comes down. Whenever the PE goes down, the allocation to equity goes up. Broadly, like if you look at ICICI Pru Balance Advantage, the equity allocation would be around 40 to 45%. That's the balance advantage. The other two categories, flexi cap and large cap, are pure equity fund, which means almost like you can say 100% money is invested in the equity, barring whatever the fund manager wants to keep as a cash. The difference is in the flexi cap, the fund manager has to keep allocation to equity. There is no binding on him to actually decide how much money should be invested in different segments. But broadly, what we have seen is in the flexi cap fund, there is always a bias towards the large cap, which means significant part of the portfolio is in large cap. There is some proportion which goes into mid cap, and there is hardly, any exposure to the small cap. If you look at large cap fund, there is a definition of large cap, which is the top 100 companies in terms of market cap. So the large cap fund can invest only out of the universe of these 100 companies. So there is a difference. These two categories are completely equity. Balance advantage, like I mentioned, is a mix of three different options there clearly. So whether when someone can look at a balance advantage as a long-term investment option, of course you can. It depends on the kind of investor you are. It depends on whether you want to restrict your exposure to equity or whether you want that allocation to equity should move in line with how the markets are moving. So clearly, balance advantage funds have proved to be a very effective investment option for those who do not want 100% to go into equity or whose time horizon or risk profile may not allow that you may have a sizable exposure to equity. So it's a great category. The fund itself is one of the best fund in that category. So you can, if the intent is to continue for long term, even then you can continue this fund.
All right. We move on to our next viewer, and Sanidhya wants to ask you a question. And Sanidhya says that there's an investment of 20,000 and 25,000 is in SBI Magnum Mid Cap and HDFC Flexi Cap respectively, and he wants to invest more 40 to 50,000 as SIP. Now he wants to know if lump sum investment is good for him or maybe an SIP will be the ideal way. We don't have enough details about the time horizon and etc. But the enhanced amount, which is of 40 to 50,000 as an SIP in the same funds, would that be recommended, or you would want him to diversify slightly more?
Well, I think it's an interesting question. Let's first address the part that he is investing through SIP and also lump sum. My belief has always been a combination of these two works the best. See, what happens is when you're investing through SIP, whenever the market there is a volatility time and again, so it helps you to bring your average cost down because you're investing in a disciplined manner. And when you're investing a lump sum, even there can be a regularity that if you decide to invest every year, so you also get the benefit of averaging. Also, when the market goes up, you benefit more. In the rising market, when you're investing through SIP, your average cost will continue to go up, whereas the lump sum will give you better returns. So a combination of that, of course, the proportion is very, very important. So the combination, I think, works out very well. Right now, he's invested only in two funds. He wants to invest 40,000-50,000 rupees through SIP. Definitely, Kavita, I agree that there has to be more diversification. Maybe two more funds. Okay, maybe one in multi-cap category and one in mid-cap category can be looked at. So definitely there is a scope to include two more funds for this. But as a strategy, combination of lump sum and SIP works really well.
Next question is from Harendra, and he wants to know whether he should be adding a large cap in his portfolio, and he's also holding on to Nippon Small Cap and HDFC Multi-Asset Fund.
Yes, I think that will be a good addition to the portfolio. Looking at the way the composition of the portfolio is, there are two options for him. In the large cap, there can be an actively managed large cap fund, and there he can consider Nippon India Large Cap Fund. The fund has done very well. The portfolio quality is good, has been able to consistently perform better than the peer group average and the benchmark. So that's one of the funds in the active category. If he is looking at a fund in the passive category, maybe he can look at HDFC Nifty Index Fund, or in fact, a combination of these two can really work well for a large cap fund. Maybe some money in actively managed fund and some money in passively managed. The combination of these two funds, I think, will really fit the bill.
All right, but then talking about large cap, would you want him? I mean, what about adding a passive large cap?
Well, like I said, Kavita, there is an index fund that I've recommended to him.
Yeah, exactly.
So that's what I'm saying. It can be either be a combination. Look, if you really look around, you will find that there are funds in the large cap category, okay, which have done well, better than even the the index fund and the peer group average. So Nippon is one of those funds. There's ICICI Blue Chip, there's SBI Blue Chip. These are the funds which have consistently able to do better than the index. So I think a combination of these two really works well for an investor.
Alright, we move on to our last query of the day, which is from Gauri, and she's doing monthly SIP of 2,500 in Franklin India Blue Chip, IDFC Flexi Cap, Kotak Emerging Equity, SBI Focused Equity, and she's also investing 5,000 in Sukanya Samriddhi Yojana, and now she wants to increase her SIP by 5,000, and should she be adding a new fund in the portfolio, or maybe introducing or increasing the SIP amount in the existing funds? And this investment time horizon is 12 years. The goal is daughter's higher education, and she wants almost 50 lakhs corpus from this investment. She's also planning to step up her SIP by 10% yearly.
Well, I think if you look at the target, 50 lakh in 12 years, the fact that the money 5,000 is being invested in Sukanya Samriddhi. So I would say that maybe a combination of SIP and Sukanya Samriddhi will get the best result for her. She needs to invest maybe 7,000 rupees in SIP. She's already investing, I think, around 10,000 there. So if she's already investing and committed to kind of increase this amount every year by 10%, I think she should be able to achieve the target. Broadly, I would say, the portfolio is fine. But for the additional investment, I think one category which is missing in the portfolio is a multi-cap category. And there, maybe she can look at Nippon India multi-cap fund.
So clearly the kind of investment portfolio she has, I just wanted to understand, do you want her to rework on her education corpus that she has fixed 50 lakhs?
Yes, I think it clearly depends on the kind of education she's looking at giving to her daughter. The time horizon is 12 years, but I think it's an important thing to remember. I think you raise a very valid point that if you look at education inflation is much higher than the normal education, normal inflation. Usually, when you're looking at a target for education, you should look at least 10% inflation. So I'm assuming that she has considered inflation in that. If she has not, she needs to then, in that case, really rework on the target. Otherwise, there is always a fear or a risk of you having a big gap between what you need to accumulate and what you end up accumulating. So you must consider inflation, and as I mentioned earlier, education inflation is higher than the normal inflation.
Alright, so that will be all, and that's the recommendation for Gauri. Thank you so much, Hemant, for being on the show and helping our viewers plan their finances. And on that note, I'll also sign off, but then I'm leaving you with a WhatsApp number and email ID where we are waiting for your query. Thank you so much for watching. Goodbye.